everybody. Morning. And welcome to the Philippine Consulate General's Dr. Jose Rizal Hall, and especially for those who travel very far from Airdrie. Alright. And, of course, to all of those who are on our live stream on Facebook this morning, welcome. This is our part of our celebration of National Arts Month here in the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary, and this will be led by a very distinguished speaker that I will be introducing a little later. But before we begin, I would like to call on the Consul General and Mark Sarnian to give her welcome remarks. Consul General, please.
Thank you very much, Vic, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to the Calgary on this cold. This very cold Saturday morning. I know for those who came all the way from Airdrie, and I understand also there are some from Edmonton, and of course those who are joining us online for this on this beautiful Saturday morning. Welcome, and I thank you for coming here. Across Alberta, Philippine community organizations are doing meaningful. They are preserving culture, supporting newcomers, implementing youth, and of course, building bridges within our Canadian society. Yet even the most inspiring initiatives require resources. Accessing these resources through well-crafted grant proposals is both an art and of course a discipline. And we are especially honored to have with us today as our resource the President and Founder of Philippine Consulting Solutions, Ms. Glorife Kokjin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ms. Glorife Kokjin is our consultant and our resource for today. And Philippine Consulting Solutions is a respected Alberta-based consulting firm specializing in grants and organization management and development. On their website, it's very interesting. On their website, it says that Hinotori isn't just a consulting firm. We are your strategic fire starter. And I think that's very important if we want to develop our organizations, develop our management skills, and make sure that we access the resources that you need. I think Hinotori would be the perfect fire starter. And of course, syempre, kailangan natin ng fire dahil malamig na malamig ngayong araw po. So over the years, Ms. Glorife has worked closely with community organizations, nonprofits, and institutions, both as an advisor and an assessor, giving her a rare dual perspective on what funders are truly looking for. Her expertise spans proposal development, program design, and evaluation, which is grounded in a deep understanding of Alberta's funding landscape. And you will hear more about her qualifications from our Deputy Consul General in a few minutes. This seminar is not simply about filling out forms. It is about sharpening your organizational clarity and strengthening your project design, learning how to communicate impact with precision and confidence. Our goal, Consulate's goal, is to equip the Filipino community organizations with practical tools and strategic insight to increase your success in securing grants. We thank you for investing your time this chilly morning. May this workshop empower you to transform strong ideas into concrete realities and community vision into measurable impact. Maraming salamat po and welcome to the Consulate.
Thank you very much, Consul General Emma Sarnian. As a promise, I will just give, and I was talking to our distinguished speaker this morning, and she said just give a very, very, very brief introduction of her. But I will just give as brief as possible because Consul General already emphasized some parts of her already distinguished biography already. So Glorife Kokjin Zuno is the leads Hinotori Consulting Solutions, and through her executive role in Hinotori, she has guided organizations in translating program concepts into clearly defined fundable initiatives which emphasize eligibility, alignment, budget integrity, accountability, and measurable outcomes. Her experience with women's leadership and entrepreneurship organizations further strengthens her understanding of governance and institutional expectations. She's been on the board of Women in Leadership, Women Entrepreneurship Day organizations, and more. And as a workshop facilitator, Gloria brings a structured, executive-level approach to grant writing, focusing on practical frameworks, clarity of narrative, and long-term sustainability rather than one-off applications. Friends of the Philippine Consulate General in Calgary, I give you Ms. Garpe Gokchi. Ms. Garpe.
It's so weird to have that introduction. Normally it's go, oh, I'm Garpe Hogan. My dad is, and then everybody's so thank you so much for coming this morning. I'm very excited to kind of share the information that I have with you. Part of the reason why I wanted to put this on the council is because there are available government grants to all small organizations, small businesses, individuals, larger businesses. It's there. It's available. However, are you eligible? And that is the question that we have to ask ourselves, especially each organization, prior to applying for any government grants. Even private grants as well, but some large companies who have initiatives are able to provide small associations and organizations. To get started, if you want to turn your history, I do have printouts later, one for each organization, that we can kind of go over so that you can review as well. So we're going to talk about a few key points here. Can you guys hear me okay? One is just about inventory. I'll go through it very, very quick. The next is to reset your expectations. Why government offers grants, who designs grant programs, for-profit businesses, what's available for them, non-profits and community organizations. I believe the majority of this room is community organizations. Sole proprietors and what makes an application competitive. Capacity and risk management, we'll go very briefly over that. As well as the reality of grant funding, common mistakes that usually people have, grant readiness levels, and before you apply, and then we'll open it for discussion. The discussion part, for those who are joining us online, unfortunately that will not be included. However, at any point in time you feel like you have some questions, feel free to email Hinatory Consulting Solutions or send the consulate a quick message and they'll make sure that I receive it. Okay? All right, so a little bit about Hinatory Consulting Solutions, as much as you know, referring back to what the General Consulate said, as well as the Vice Deputy General Consulate. Just a quick overview, we are your strategic fire starter. But to make it a little bit more technical, in terms of grant writing, we are your framework engineers. So think of it as your business, you have a large goal, you have a project, you want to make sure that the community is able to benefit from it. Where do you start? So we come in and we ask the questions to make sure that you have the general answers to be able to project your answers on paper and then make it make sense for the government. Okay? Along with that, we also do strategic business consulting, operations and systems design, documentation and compliance frameworks, immigration and workforce pathway alignment, as well as executive and institutional program development. Okay? So, to move forward, let's reset expectations. I want everyone to understand that grants are not free money. It's not free. You pay for it. You pay your taxes, you work, right? So they are competitive, they are very policy driven, they are outcome based and public accountability funding. When the government provides the opportunity and publicizes a grant, they make it shiny as possible. They say this dollar value is available to you. This potential $50,000 grant is available to you. There are instances where you potentially could receive the $50,000 grant in full, There are large instances where they'll only fund a little bit of it. You may receive 20, you may receive 30. It depends on where they feel your funding is required. Okay? They are not business rescue funds. They are not startup capital without impact. And they are not guaranteed income for yourself, for your organization, or for your business. Why governments offer grants? A large portion of why the government offers grants is generally following funding cycles that follow budgets, based on political priorities. Okay? Grants change based on economic conditions and government focus. So the budget will come out November, December, and if you pay attention to the budget that the government is providing, both federal and Alberta, since we're in Alberta, or provincial, you'll understand which direction that budget is going to go. And then you'll understand if they're going with cultural, or if they're going with workforce, or if they're going with a strategic sector within the industry. For example, if they start talking about agriculture, majority of those grants are going to be funneled into that. Okay? So budgets, when you're thinking of applying grants for your organizations, pay attention to what the government is saying and which sectors they're putting up. And what does that mean? It means economic growth, workforce development, innovation and technology, community resilience, cultural preservation, environmental sustainability, and inclusion and anti-racism. Those are the ones that are currently available for us. Some of them are already closed, depending on the value of the grant. Mostly federal grants open up in December, and then they close within 14 to 20 days. Okay? What does this mean, though? It means that the government encourages organizations to work together. That's where you see some businesses or associations that have similar programs partner to create a larger project in request of a larger grant. Sharing, knowing, and sharing space, sharing the workload. Who designs these grants? Grant programs are designed by federal ministries, so think IRCC, Economic Development Canada, provincial departments in Alberta Works, municipal economic development offices, we're thinking Calgary Arts Foundations, the specific Calgary, I believe sorry, at the top of my head, so it's some of them will have smaller grants, like micro grants, that will be provided to you, specific to the organization with what Calgary is trying to focus on. Okay? And industry agencies. So, the very important thing to remember, every program has objectives and requirements that are directly and already written into law and or policies. Okay? When you are going to think about writing and applying for a potential grant, you are not trying to convince the government that you have a program that they should take in. You are trying to convince the government that they have a problem you have a solution for. Okay? For-profit businesses, we'll go over some of the different sectors. Any questions so far? I don't know if I'm going too fast. You have to let me know if I need to slow down. You're good? So for typical funding categories, as I mentioned, we have innovation and research and development. We have tech adoption. This is very generalized. So tech adoption generally means if your business or association or organization requires a technology upgrade. So you have to be able to, if there are things and means that your organization needs to be able to recover in terms of data protection, in terms of making sure that you have the ability to capture information and protect that information within your members, that is considered tech adoption. Okay? Export development. Hiring and wage subsidies. This includes hiring students as well. Scale up and market expansion. This is what's available for for-profit businesses. The requirements when you're applying for these type of grants is that you have potentially matching funds. So if the government says to you, I have $100,000 that you could potentially apply for and receive, they generally ask if you can match funds for those first. It's about 15 to 20% of the funds that they want to see you already have put aside for the project that you have. Okay? Job creation targets, once that program starts, who's going to be involved, what jobs are going to be involved. Revenue projections, and then financial statements. The government wants to see that your company is able to sustain your business after the grants have been provided. So they do ask for financial statements. Okay. Generally, majority of the grants, if they're larger grants, even $20,000, $50,000 worth of grants, they will ask that the organization or the business for profit is at least 2 years of age. So for grants provided for businesses, small and or medium, it usually means that there is an expectation of return, so your ROI, that the government is requiring upon the completion of the project. This is not just funds for growth, just for growth's sake. It needs to make sure that it requires growth that society can benefit from. Okay? Sure.
Can you elaborate more on the export development as part of the typical funding categories?
The export development? So if you have something that is Canadian, you're creating it yourself, and your business requires, or you're thinking of taking your business global and exporting outside. So you're taking a Canadian product and exporting it to, for lack of a better saying, to our neighbor in the south, to the United States. If you require additional funding to negotiate the logistics of that, there are grants available for that.
Is there any restrictions on the products?
There are.
Or do you just have to take a look?
Yes, yeah, you'll have to look at the eligibility for those restrictions, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so next is for nonprofits and community organizations. I believe majority of us in this room is community organizations and nonprofits, right? So we can, if you want to kind of ask a couple questions in this particular part, I'll accept it. Common funding areas for nonprofit and community organizations is generally youth programs, settlement and integration, cultural initiatives, anti-racism and inclusion programs, skills training and community events. There is one thing that I want to say that is restricted within the settlement and integration portion of this grant is that TFWs are not included. Okay, so if your program is circling around temporary foreign workers, the government will not approve that grant. Okay, the expectation that we have is that there is board governance, and each member of the board has a unique role and expectation that is executed throughout their tenure. Okay, there has to be financial controls, and there has to be clear target groups. You have to know who you are going to hit, and not hit. It's not that's a great word. You have to know who you're going to cater to in terms of your program. And then community partnerships. So largely for nonprofits, what the government wants to see on all three levels, federal, Alberta, and federal, provincial, and municipal, is that community partnerships are happening. So this means if you know of an association that is already doing the work that you want to do as well, a lot of the times if you partner with that association, the grant becomes larger, and then the workload is split in half. Okay, so, you know, my mom used to say sharing is caring, and then I have to say to my kids, sharing is caring. A lot of that is also in terms of work. Sharing shows to the government that You're putting your indifferences aside because you want to make sure that whatever program you guys have or initiative you have is going to benefit the whole community, not just your community. Okay? So nonprofits and community organizations are expected to have oversight, accountability, and measurable impact. Remember, no matter how great your intention is or how good the program will be, if there is no clear governance, you will not receive the grant. Okay? You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what your intentions are going to be. The government wants to see that you've already thought it through, you have a plan, you've figured out the risk, you have an answer and solution to that risk, so that they know that when they provide you with that money, everything is covered. Just because you're a nonprofit and the grants are available to you, it doesn't always mean that you do not have to pay it back. Okay? Especially for nonprofits and for for-profit businesses, if the government requires the reporting at the end of the funding period, and they are not satisfied with your reports, they will require repayment. Okay? Any question on that so far? No? You're doing a great job.
You are.
Sole proprietors. So this is individuals who are not incorporated, they have a small business, they're earning $30,000, maybe less than that, doing a little bit of a side hustle. That doesn't necessarily mean there are no grants for those individuals. Okay? They are limited, but they're still possible. So we have micro grants, which is $5,000 and less. There are some private organizations and businesses that offer more than that. Arts and cultural grants, materials or expenses to put on a solo exhibit for artists. Professional development, so upgrading skills for yourself or for an employee of yours. And for regional development funding. Okay? The challenges for this is that it's limited financial reporting history. It's hard to provide strong reporting when it's just you running your business. Okay? So they do have a little bit of a leniency in that, but because it's just you who's going to be doing the report, they do ask that they step in sometimes and then work through the reporting with you. Okay? It also means that there are fewer funding streams available to sole proprietors, and then they are perceived as a delivery risk. Sole proprietors have a tendency to want really big projects, or a project that they are going to undertake that's going to cost a lot of time, and sometimes delivery is missed. Sometimes, not all the time. In this case, with sole proprietors, they do ask that once you apply, you keep in communication with the grant account, the account manager that you would have. Okay, so there is emails for these grants that you can send questions to, ask guidance for. Generally, sole proprietors don't always have clear structure in their work. That's why it's called a delivery risk. Because of this, there is a delivery risk that the government ties to these types of grants. You generally have to provide proof of use of the grant funds. Okay? Partnering with an corporation or another organization often increases the grant eligibility. Any questions on that? And what makes the application competitive? Okay. Alignment. This is huge. Alignment is the keyword I like to say to my staff. It is also the keyword I like to say when I'm doing yoga. Does your project match the program objectives exactly? That is the key word. So remember earlier when I said if the government doesn't give you free money, there is requirements on top of that, but at least it's funding that you are already provided. It's because of the measures that they're requiring upon reporting. Okay? You need to have clear KPIs, key performance indicators. It has to be clear. You also have defined target numbers that you're able to provide the government. And here's a tidbit for this. If you have defined target numbers and you deliver under those target numbers, you have to provide a reason why. If you deliver over those target markets, that target number, you also have to provide a reason why. Okay? And then there are timeline milestones. So budget justification, when it comes to just budget justification for all grants, they require detailed breakdowns. They require market-aligned costs and transparent assumptions. Can you clarify your KPIs? Just sitting here right now, thinking about your own organizations, are you able to think right now what your key performance indicators are? Do you know your outputs versus your outcomes? And have you realized that your budget, what your budget will look like prior to the project? So this is where the application becomes competitive. If you don't already have this in mind, and if you don't already have this planned out and prepared for it, your application is within a pool of hundreds of other applicants. Okay, so if there is a community or an organization that has a lesser need of that project, but they are able to provide clear indicators, clear performance indicators, as well as a clear budget to the dollar value roughly around, and they say, we only need $10,000 worth of a $30,000 grant, where yours is very generalized and you're saying you want the full 30, they will go with the person or the organization that only needs 15 because they can measure the outcome. Okay? Output in this sense is the result of the work that has been done. It's the services, it's the performances, it's the physical work that comes out of the project. Outcomes is measured by who benefits from it. Capacity and risk management. So grant reviewers will look for, and this is very high level, there are other specifics, but generally this is what you'll see in the grants that you will be reviewing and writing for. They want to see experienced team. They want to know that everybody that's really on their team knows what they're doing, the roles that they're taking, and the work that they're doing. Operational systems. So policies. Do you have compliance in order? Do you have your policies in order? Do you have your risk analysis in order? What could go wrong? What could go right? Also, they need financial tracking capabilities. Some of us will use Excel, which is fine. Some of us will use QuickBooks or Sage, which is fine, which is better. But so long as you have a method that the government can ask in terms of a file, along with proof, if they're questioning your reporting, that's exactly where the key indicator is. Okay? And risk mitigation plan. Always assess your risk. The questions that they will ask, maybe not directly within the application itself, is can you deliver? The way that you're going to be able to provide that is if they see clear compliance and if they see clear planning. You understand your risks, you understand who your target market is, you understand who's going to benefit from it, why they're going to benefit from it, and how much it's going to cost. What could go wrong, and if it does go wrong, can you fix it? Okay? You must be prepared with your risk assessment, your business organization, or your project must be within compliance with policies, and you and your business must be operationally ready. So if you can think right now, is your organization operationally ready at this moment? And if your answer is maybe not quite yet, this is an opportunity for you to review the grant eligibility and then target the next when it opens again in the next season. Okay, at least you'll be able to align. Yes, you had a question.
Oh, it's not a question. Probably in addition to your brilliant presentation in terms of, what are we to look at as an organization
Yes.
internally in terms of our capacity and the risk management. But there is also like a guidelines that is available under the CRA. Oh, thank you very much. There are guidelines under the CRA.
Yes.
And there are like two tests that you may want really to assess yourselves. One is in terms of public benefit. So this is kind of very laid out under the CRA, whether a vested interest comes into play, whether this is for the public use, and whether it benefits. So I have just a recollection of those, few items, but you can look at public benefit under CRA, where you need to test yourselves whether you have qualified on those. Because if you qualified on those, then there's like a path in terms of whether, you would be the best fit in terms of partnership. But the second is under the CRA as well. There are like guidelines in terms of assessing whether you are a low, a medium, or a high risk. And there are like several factors that are in there that are outlined. So number one, if you are looking for $5,000, I think that would be a low risk. But if you are looking for $50,000, that would be a high risk for the government, for example.
Yes.
Okay? And then there will be other tests that are outlined in that guidelines, looking into your capacity, looking into whether you have the governance. So there are like specific questions there, and you might want to assess again yourselves where you lie on the risk, from the CRA perspective, and see whether it's low, high, and medium. If you are in medium or high risk, then this is where I think our expert speaker has outlined that you really need to reassess yourselves and build your capacity around that area. I'll post it.
Yeah. No, he's right. A lot of this information is available online. It's just a matter of me taking it, organizing it for you to completely understand. So there are ways to assess yourself. There are ways to assess your organization that the government has provided online. Again, after this presentation, come Monday morning, you will receive a list of grants that are available to you, as well as what's available in terms of guidelines. Each grant has different eligibility guidelines. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. How are we with time? So realize the reality of grant funding. Grant funding, again, is not free money. You may not be required to pay any of the funds back. However, there are expectations, and the expectations are reporting obligations, mid-project reviews. Sometimes they will come back and say, can you update us on what your project is doing? A lot of the times as well, if the government believes, if you're larger organizations, for example, with Will, here in the back here, he's with Fiesta Filipino. A lot of times with larger organizations that may potentially be able to receive larger grants, if the government believes in the work that they're doing, they want to see more of it. Okay? Reporting obligations and project reviews, financial audits, sometimes mid-through, sometimes after. Reimbursement delays. So if they have questions of where the money is going, particularly at that time, they will ask for a pause, and your account manager will have to do a review. There's matching contribution requirements and strict scope of compliance and fund reallocation authorization. Okay? This means that, for example, if I had a workforce and I received a workforce grant, and one individual decided to be removed from the project, so I no longer have to pay that individual. I want to reallocate the money that I would have paid that individual and put it towards the project in a whole. For example, for vendor funding. If I want to reallocate it, sometimes the government requires that you ask for authority to do so. Okay? Remember, the money, even though it goes into your account, it's technically not yours, it is society's money. It's the people's money. Okay? Providing the above builds credibility. All businesses that the government funds is public knowledge. When you receive your funding, they will put it and post it on the grant website, and they'll say, this is the company, or this is the organization, or the individual that received this grant. This is the amount. This opens up opportunity for future businesses, future organizations to reach out to you and ask how that project went and potentially partner with you afterwards. So know that once you have a grant, what they want to see is that you market it. You talk about that grant that the government provided to you. Because there's potential that it could grow to something bigger, especially if society needs it. Okay? They are provided with a summary of the project that they funded and how much funding was provided. Many businesses largely underestimate the workload, however, after approval. Remember when I said that they ask for a report? Surprisingly, the report takes much longer than the actual application. So this is where a lot of the times I see organizations fall short, is because they don't track everything throughout the project length. It has to be properly tracked, so that when reporting comes along, everything's already available to you. You just have to structure it as a proper report. Okay? That's where your processes comes in. That's where your framework and your governance come in. The common mistakes that most organizations, associations, for-profits, and nonprofits make is, regardless of the size of the grant, preparation is key. Common mistakes of applicants who do not receive funding are: they are applying without really reading the eligibility criteria. They are weak or generic in their proposals. There are no measurable outcomes, or very little measurable outcomes. They have inflated budgets. They are missing some type of documentation. They don't have letters of support. This could come in many ways. So letters of support could be the partner that you're partnering with. It could be a vendor that's saying that they're wanting to participate in this project because it gives numbers for their business and it supports the community. It could be your own reference in terms of previous work. So if they know that you're able to provide a good project that society, that your community, your organization will be able to benefit from, they want to see that someone else also has the same want in terms of that initiative. That they might not be the one putting it through, you are, but they're willing to support you through it. Okay? These common mistakes are largely preventable. It's a testament of lack of strategy, not lack of intelligence. Yes.
Gloria, I hope you won't mind if I ask a question
Sure.
here. When you mentioned the letters of support, are there any restrictions on organizations who can provide the letters of support? For example, can the mayor provide a letter of support? Are there any requirements for the organization or for the entity providing the letter of support?
So depending on the level of the grant, there are specific requirements that have to be highlighted within that letter of support. So, for example, if the city is willing to work on a large festival or a large cultural event, which is part of the anti-racism and multiculturalism grant, if the city is willing to observe and say we're donating the space, which I believe some organizations were able to achieve prior to. If they're saying we're donating the space and we believe in this project, that's huge for the federal government and huge for the Alberta government. So they can apply, remember you can apply for all three levels because all three levels are available to you.
But it's the one providing the letter of support. Full disclosure here, several Filipino community organizations have approached the consulate
Yes.
to provide letters of support. Of course, we ask them for what their background is without even knowing about the entire application process. But we do ask them what the purpose is, and that is of course what we place in the letter of support. I just wanted to know whether it's worth it for us to be pushing for these. I know, of course, that's a rhetorical question. Of course, it is important. I just wanted to know whether it is indeed helpful.
It is helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, it is helpful. So if you're able to provide them with a supporting letter, yes, the government does see, or the funder that does see it, and they take that into account, that the consulate is willing to back them up. Okay. Will, you had your hand up?
No,
Did you?
that was like, we do that for Fiesta Filipino. We
That's right.
ask for
Yeah.
these endorsements. It provides you with credibility. It provides you with the aspect of like when Glorify is talking about like partnerships, that like
Yeah.
you have those partnerships within the community, and these other organizations are willing to stand up with you.
Yes, actually, the Fiesta Filipino organization has multiple other organizations within it that they support, that provides them with the grant funding that they've already received. So a lot of that is, I believe, Flipside that my daughter was in. They partnered with Fiesta Filipino. Cinema is another one, I believe. So they're partnering with larger organizations that they know have already received large grants from the government in order to say, can we have a little bit of that? And that just shows the federal government and the Alberta government and the municipal government that there are streams of this community that they built that originally are now structuring and branching out to different areas and strengthening the community within it. Okay, so they love to see that. And yes, the letter of support, especially with the Philippine Consulate, is huge. That makes a huge difference. Yes, sir.
Very quickly, just to say that in proposals where there is collaboration across ethnocultural community or Filipino organizations, then a letter of support is also like required from the other partners of that proposal. But what I want to like also share with you is to be more mindful of what you are committing into the letter of support, because that is always counted in terms of expectations from the donor. But on the other hand, it also protects you, because then you have to outline what are my roles and obligations in this partnership, you know. And oftentimes we hate to speak about what then would be the support of the primary applicant in terms of dollars, and we don't talk about it. We just give it, but we expect that we will be given because we'll be doing this X activity. So those things need to be cleared out when you do your letter of support, so everything is level and expectations are met once you are successful.
Yes, yeah, correct. Yeah, so like I said, there are specific criteria that the letter of support is going to have. It has to provide clear expectations, but very much so the project itself has to have clear expectations. Yes.
Would you be able to provide us with the link of the grants provided to organizations? Is there a specific website or?
Yeah, so on Monday I'll provide you guys with a list. Yeah, so everybody in this room will receive a list from me.
Partnership with an organization.
you have been in partnership with an organization, but then actually that partnership will be in sync here at all? Like your actually your outcome of the project will be in sync with that partnership?
It doesn't necessarily have to be in sync. It does have to have the same goal. So basically, when you're doing a project and you're working with another organization, it's either you have a strength on one side, potentially, where you're either sharing the workload, or you have a stronger aspect of being able to do this particular aspect, but they have a stronger way of doing the other part of it. So it's sharing the work and sharing the strength. Okay? So if you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and continue, and then we'll do the Q&A after. These are great questions, guys. I'm glad I did my reading and prepped for this. Common mistakes, again, continued. There are 3 levels of grant readiness. Okay? The 3 levels are the curious stage, which is normally where everybody stays stuck, the eligibility stage, and fundable. Okay? Most people believe that they are already fundable, when realistically, they are on the first level of curiosity. Just because you want to apply for the grant doesn't mean you are ready to apply for the grant. Okay? At the curious stage, you're exploring the grants. So you've heard that the funding is available to you. You have an idea that you want to be able to provide a solution to in terms of the problem that the government potentially has, or that your community has. You haven't reviewed the eligibility in detail, and you have not defined your outcomes yet. You have not really looked at your structured budget, and you have no idea if your internal reporting is, if you have an internal reporting system that is sustainable. If you don't have any of these, you are not ready to apply for grant funding. Okay. The large gap between curiosity, knowing that there's a fund available to you, and being able to be fundable already, is strategy, positioning, documentation, governance, and an execution plan. Being fundable, this is where you are positioned to win. If you are able to say that you can provide all of this now, then for the most part, you're ready to go. All you have to do is provide all that structure into one email to the government, or through the application there's forms that you can fill out and then upload proof. You have to have clear alignment, a clear alignment with policy objectives. So this is the government's policy as well as your company or your organization's policy. The measurable outcomes with defined KPIs, risk mitigation strategy, detailed defensible budget, delivery capacity, and team credibility. That one is huge. A lot of the times I find that there are organizations who have such big goals, and then the team sort of trickles off. Instead of 10, there's now 2. And you're left going, okay, can we even pull this off? Right? Reporting systems in place, whether it's in Excel, putting in a Word document, basically the system needs to be built so that everything that you're doing towards that project or initiative is accounted for and documented. Okay? Letters of support, partnerships secured, as well as cash flow plan for reimbursement in time. Again, like I said, if the recipient failed to meet the contractual obligations outlined in the grant agreement, or uses the funds outside of the project, the funder will require that money back. Okay. Remember that you're submitting a grant application to solve a problem that the government has. You're not pitching a business idea. If you are an association, you're providing an initiative that society can benefit from, not just members of your particular organization. So ask yourself today, are you able to ask yourself, does your project solve a public problem? Do you have the team currently to deliver it? Do you have to build the team to deliver it? Will that team be able to commit to the delivery? Can you track and report all of your results? Do you have the cash flow to sustain it if you're not going to receive the grant till maybe 3 or 4 months down the road? And is my structure, someone misspelled that as me, is my structure appropriate for the grant? Okay. Alright, so grants are not about chasing money, grants are about aligning vision with public priorities. When structured properly, your grants can accelerate your growth, expand your impact, strengthen your governance, and build long-term sustainability. I know that it's a benefit having Will in this room with Fiesta Filipino, because I remember Fiesta Filipino being around when I was in high school. So for it to still be here today, 20 years down the road, it's huge. I was a part of it, my children are a part of it, and I have a 20-year-old now, so if he hopefully 5, 6 years down the road, his children can potentially be part of it. Okay? That's where you see the strength, and that's where community has to lie. Regardless of what's going on personally, if there is a project that's available that we can all benefit from as a society, we should all be pushing for that project, because at the scale that they're going now, since they've been around for a decade or so, right? Since they've been around, the government has the capability of providing them $1 million. If we rally behind that $1 million, it's our community that wins.
Yes, if I just may, Lord, comment on that. I think at least what I am learning from this grant application briefing is how fiscal responsibility is embedded in the application,
Yes.
which means that if you are an organization that has already been receiving funding, these are funds that are well spent. These are funds that don't go into their personal pockets, because there's a lot of responsibility that comes when you report back to the government.
Yeah.
So actually, they don't even have to fiscalize themselves, because it's the government that does that already.
Correct.
When you report, when you provide the government with your reports, where the money is actually going, that is basically your fiscal report, and it definitely rules out, fly-by-night operators who are just there to secure funding, and then eventually they pocket the money. I know there's a lot of, I've been in government service, I've been in the foreign service long enough to know that there are many Filipino community organizations that have fallen into that trap, not just here in North America, but in London, in Asia, all over the world. And not just Filipino community organizations, but also other community organizations, other nationalities. They fall into that trap. But what I'm learning from this grant application briefing is how strict the Canadian government is when it comes to giving away that money. And it's not just money that's, sige, sa inyo na yan.
Correct.
But it's traceable.
It's true.
That's right. It's traceable, and so yeah. When there is an organization that applies and eventually wins that grant, we can be assured that the money that they have won or that they have received from the government is put to good use. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, I totally agree. That's correct. So it's basically saying that these are available to you. There are funds that are available to you because they want to see everybody within the community to succeed. But it can't just be beneficial to the people or the members within that organization. It has to be beneficial to everyone outside of it as well. So that's where why it is the fiscal responsibility ties in, is they need to see where the money is actually going. Is it staying within your organization, or is it meeting others, societies and being sustained that way. So why work with Unitary Consulting Solutions? I'm just going to put a little plug in here for the business because I can. Very quickly, a lot of this is the reason why we are in place. So Unitary Consulting Solutions on an individual level, on a business level, we want to make sure that you already have your framework. Whether that means workplace compliance, framework as soon as you arrive as a newcomer, to businesses and organizations. A lot of times when you have large ideas or you have a goal, there's no way for you to fully understand unless you do your own particular research, which takes time, is to organize the strategies and the frameworks to make sure that you are compliant in achieving those particular goals. And that's where Unitary Consulting Solutions comes in. Okay? If you have any questions, we're going to go ahead and do the Q&A. For those who joined us on the live stream, thank you so much for joining us. You are free to send me a WhatsApp for questions as well as an email. And if you want, you can comment on the live stream right now, and I'm sure that the Philippine Consulate will be able to provide me with your questions, and I can answer them via email. Okay? Did you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, and as mentioned by Dorothy, this will conclude our live stream for this morning's session. So because we will have a question and answer for our audience here of about 20 people here right now at the Philippine Consulate. But we would the live stream will still be available on our Facebook page and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel shortly. So we have about 30 minutes, Dorothy, for question and answer, and the more interesting part, I guess, of this morning session. So there's a microphone.